Welcome the anointed ones. When God stops warning, he starts acting. They thought they got away with it. They laughed, dismissed, and ignored every warning. But what happens when God himself runs out of patience? Spoiler alert, it's not pretty. Here's a fact: 70% of people believe in karma. But divine judgment doesn't wait for karma's slow process. When God steps in, he doesn't settle for poetic justice. He writes the whole tragic novel. And now, the enemies who refuse to listen are waking up with an affliction no doctor can diagnose, no wealth can cure, and no connections can escape. They didn't take the warning seriously. Now they've been issued something far worse than regret. Sit tight. This is where the real story begins. Number 1. The last warning has expired. God's patience isn't a free pass, it's a countdown. Every ignored warning, every arrogant act, every moment they thought they were untouchable was just time running out. They assumed silence meant safety. They were wrong. The last warning has expired. This isn't about random misfortune, this is precision. They had every chance to turn back, but instead they doubled down. Every opportunity for mercy was met with more pride, more deceit, more destruction. Now the very patience they took for weakness has turned into the force they can't escape. When judgment begins, it doesn't come with an announcement. There's no flashing sign, no dramatic music, just a shift so undeniable it steals their peace before it even touches their body. First, doors stop opening, then people start leaving. Suddenly, what was once effortless becomes a struggle. The sickness doesn't just hit their health, it spreads to their finances, their relationships, their influence. Everything they built on arrogance starts crumbling under the weight of divine judgment. By the time they realize what's happening, it's too late. Prayers they never cared to say now choke in their throats. They look for escape routes, but none exist. The patience they abused has run out, and what's left isn't a warning, it's the consequences. This isn't just karma. This is God showing them what happens when warnings are treated like jokes. And now they aren't laughing. Number 2. Their sickness is not just physical. The sickness isn't just in their body, it's in their life. At first, they might call it bad luck, a rough patch, something they can fix. But this isn't just a fever or fatigue. This is a collapse from the inside out. Their mind, once sharp and confident, starts to turn against them. The same tricks, manipulations, and lies they once mastered now backfire. They forget things. They second-guess themselves. Anxiety creeps in where arrogance used to be. The weight of their own deceit is catching up, and there's no escape from a mind that refuses to rest. Then their spirit starts to break. The things that once made them feel powerful, control, influence, domination, don't satisfy anymore. They feel empty, restless, drained. They used to laugh at faith, mock humility, and dismiss warnings. Now they desperately search for peace in the very places they used to ridicule. But peace doesn't answer them. They ignored it for too long. Next, their legacy begins to rot. The respect they demanded, gone. The loyalty they counted on, fading. People around them start distancing themselves, not out of hate, but out of instinct. Because even those closest to them can sense when someone is marked for downfall. Their name, once a source of fear or admiration, is now whispered in pity and warning. This sickness isn't just a punishment, it's a mirror showing them what they've become. They thought they were untouchable, that consequences were for other people. Now they realize the worst kind of suffering isn't just physical, it's watching everything you built disintegrate while you're still alive to feel it. And no medicine, no money, no power can fix that. Number 3. The delay was their trap. They thought they were winning. Every time they got away with their actions, they felt invincible. No consequences, no setbacks, nothing but success. They took the silence as approval, the lack of immediate punishment as proof that they were untouchable. What they didn't realize was that the delay wasn't mercy, it was a setup. God doesn't always strike instantly. Sometimes he lets people dig their own graves, giving them enough rope to tie themselves up in their own mistakes. Every extra day they thought they were getting away with it was just more time to expose their true nature. They weren't smart, they were being watched. They weren't lucky, they were being allowed to believe their own illusion. Now the trap is closed, and they don't even know when it happened. One moment they were on top, and the next, they're surrounded by the consequences they swore would never come. Their own choices locked them in. They were never safe, just blind. They look back and realize every warning was a test they failed. Every extra chance was an opportunity they wasted. They could have stopped, they could have changed. But their pride kept them moving forward, deeper into the downfall that was always waiting. Now there's no way out. They mistook delay for escape. They mistook silence for absence. Now, they understand too late. Patience wasn't permission. It was the final countdown, and time just ran out. Number 4. Their own hands crafted their plague. They thought they were building power, but they were only planting seeds of their own destruction. Every lie they told, every scheme they set in motion, every act of manipulation, they thought it was clever. They thought it was control. What they didn't realize was that every move they made was forming the sickness that would eventually consume them. Lies don't just disappear. They spread, mutate, and come back stronger. The false stories they spun to ruin others are now unraveling their own reputation. The people they used and discarded, now those same people are the ones exposing them, turning against them, ensuring they have no escape. Manipulation is a game that only works when you're in control. But the moment they lose their grip, even slightly, the same tactics they relied on start working against them. The trust they faked, the alliances they forced, the loyalty they bought, it all collapses. Now they're the ones being deceived, outmaneuvered, and abandoned. And sabotage? That's the deadliest weapon of all, because it teaches you how to destroy. They spent so much time plotting against others that they became experts at downfall. But what happens when their own tactics are used against them? What happens when the same traps they set now have their name on them? This isn't coincidence. It's a perfect circle of consequences. What they put into the world had no choice but to return to them. Their own hands built the plague they now suffer from. And the worst part? They can't blame anyone but themselves. Number 5. They laughed too soon. They laughed when you warned them. They laughed when they got away with it. They laughed because they thought consequences were just myths told to scare the weak. But they laughed too soon. They assumed silence meant safety. They thought because nothing happened immediately, nothing would happen at all. What they didn't understand is that real reckoning doesn't come with noise. It comes quietly, like a slow poison, like a clock counting down that only they can hear when it's too late. At first everything seemed normal. Life continued. Their routine stayed the same, but then the small things started shifting. Doors that once opened easily now stayed shut. Support that once surrounded them slowly faded. The confidence they wore like armor began to crack. It wasn't an explosion, it was a slow collapse, piece by piece, while they still stood there, trying to pretend nothing was happening. And now, that laughter? It's gone. The same mouths that mocked are now whispering in fear. The same people who dismissed the warnings are looking over their shoulders, wondering when the final blow will land. They were so busy laughing they didn't notice the storm forming above them. They thought it was a joke. Now they're the punchline. Number 6. Their power was a loan, not a gift. They carried themselves like rulers, convinced that their power was theirs by right. They mistook privilege for permanence, forgetting that everything they had was only ever on loan. They thought they were untouchable because of their status, their influence, their ability to control others. But loans have terms, and when the time runs out, repayment isn't optional. At first, the decline is subtle. The same people who once hung on their every word start hesitating. Their commands don't carry the same weight. The respect they demanded turns into obligation. People stay close, not out of loyalty, but out of fear, waiting for the moment to leave. Then the shift becomes undeniable. Their decisions backfire. Their influence shrinks. The very system they used to elevate themselves now rejects them. They try to hold on, but power borrowed from the universe is never truly theirs to keep. It was only ever a temporary position, a test they failed, and now the debt collector has arrived. And the interest? It comes in humiliation, in loss, in the slow realization that no matter how high they climbed, they were never the owner, just a tenant in a house that was never theirs. Now, they watch as everything they built slips through their fingers, and they can't do anything to stop it. They thought they were chosen. They thought they were special. But now they understand. Power given can be taken, and when it's taken, it never returns the same way again. Number 7. Their own circle will turn on them. They built their kingdom on control, manipulation, and fear, believing their circle was loyal. But loyalty based on power isn't real. It's rented, not owned. And the moment that power weakens, so does the devotion of those around them. At first, the shifts are small. People stop answering as quickly. The forced smiles seem tighter. The ones who once clung to their every word now nod absent-mindedly, already looking for an exit. No one wants to be near a sinking ship. And deep down, they feel the water rising. Then the distance becomes undeniable. Conversations happen without them. Decisions are made behind their back. The same people who once sang their praises now whisper about their downfall. And when the sickness, the judgment, the consequences becomes too obvious to ignore, their allies scatter like survivors escaping a burning house. What hurts them most isn't the betrayal. It's the realization that they were never truly respected, only feared, only useful. Now they're neither, and without power to hold them together, their once loyal circle abandons them completely, leaving them to face the reckoning alone. The same hands that applauded them now push them away. The same mouths that defended them now pretend they never knew them. And for the first time they understand. Loyalty isn't tested when you rise. It's tested when you fall. Number 8. Their prayers won't be answered. They never thought they would need mercy. They mocked faith, dismissed consequences, and laughed at the idea of divine justice. Now, with everything crumbling, they finally drop to their knees. But the heavens remain silent. They call out, but there is no answer. They weep, but there is no relief. The same God they ignored, the same grace they spat on, is now out of reach. Not because he isn't listening, but because they ignored him for too long. Grace isn't infinite when arrogance is endless. They had warnings, chances, and time, but they wasted it all. Now, they want forgiveness, not because they've changed, but because they're suffering. They don't regret their actions, only the consequences. But heaven isn't fooled. Repentance born out of pain, not sincerity, is just another trick. And tricks don't work on God. They were comfortable in their sins until their sins became their sickness. They were fearless in their defiance until fear became their shadow. And now, when they finally understand what they've done, they reach for mercy like a drowning man reaching for air, only to find that the waves have already swallowed them whole. God didn't turn away from them. They turned away first. And now they realize too late. Some doors don't stay open forever. Number 9. No remedy exists for a divine judgment. They spent their lives believing that everything had a solution, a price, a favor, a loophole. When problems arose, they had resources, influence, and people to clean up their mess. But now, they face something none of those things can fix. Doctors run tests, but the results make no sense. Treatments fail. The best specialists give up. It's not a disease of the body, it's a sentence from above. Money, which once solved everything, is now worthless. They would give everything they have for relief. But divine judgment doesn't accept bribes. Connections crumble. The powerful people they once relied on are silent, distant, uninterested. Influence meant everything when they were on top, but now that they're falling, it means nothing. They reach out for help, but nobody wants to be tied to a sinking ship. The only cure is the one thing they refuse to do: humble themselves. True repentance could change everything, but their pride is stronger than their pain. They still believe they can outthink, outmaneuver, or manipulate their way out. But divine judgment doesn't negotiate, so they remain trapped, suffering in a sickness that has no name, no cure, no escape. Not because healing isn't possible, but because their arrogance won't allow them to reach for it. Number 10. The symptoms will match their sins. Every action they took, every sin they committed has a price. And now that price is being paid in the most fitting way possible. The lies they told, they're choking on them. Every untruth that slipped from their lips has come back, suffocating their ability to speak. What once came easily now feels like a struggle, like they're drowning in their own words. The truth that they ignored now screams in their throat, leaving them unable to articulate anything but their regret. Those hands that took what wasn't theirs, that reached for power, control, and possessions. Now those hands are withering. The very fingers that grasped for what didn't belong to them are now stiff, trembling, losing strength. Every selfish act, every greedy grab is being mirrored in the decline of their own body, and they can't outrun the poetic justice of it all. It's not just physical. Their affliction is the manifestation of their crimes. The punishment is custom-made, like a tailor-crafted suit of retribution, perfectly shaped to fit their sins. Their actions have created a mirror that reflects back at them, but this time, it's their own weaknesses they see. They can no longer hide behind the power they once had or the people they once manipulated. The affliction is a reminder that no one escapes the consequences of their actions. The punishment is not random, it's not blind. It's perfectly designed to show them that the same hands they used to take from others are the ones now taking from them. Number 11. The strongest will fall the hardest. The ones who stood at the top, untouchable in their arrogance, are about to feel the hardest fall. They never considered that their strength could be a weakness, that their invincibility was an illusion. They were too powerful, too untouchable, too convinced that they could outrun the consequences. Now their downfall will be as loud and undeniable as their rise. What makes this fall so devastating isn't just that they lose everything, it's the fact that everyone is watching. The people who once admired them, those who followed their every move and hung on to their every word, are now witnessing their destruction. And what they see isn't just a failure, it's something deeper. It's a reckoning. Their once unshakable empire starts crumbling piece by piece. What was once so solid is now dissolving in the most public way possible. The whispers begin, "How could this happen? Is this divine judgment?" The same people who once looked to them for guidance now question everything they stood for. And the answer is obvious. This isn't just a fall. This is something much bigger. They thought they were immune to consequences. But now the world sees the truth. The strongest fall the hardest because their pride makes the crash inevitable. And when they hit the ground, it's not just them who feels the impact. It shakes everyone around them, leaving even their most loyal followers wondering if maybe this wasn't just fate. Maybe this was something much greater. Number 12. The humble will be vindicated. Every time they looked down on you, dismissed your worth, or mocked the strength of your faith, they thought they were safe. They believed their power was secure, their superiority unquestioned. What they didn't realize is that everything they did to belittle you was being recorded, not just by time, but by the very universe they underestimated. Now, as they fight to hold on to what's slipping away, you won't need to lift a finger. Their downfall will speak louder than any revenge you could ever take. The suffering they caused you, the ridicule, the dismissal, it's all coming back, and it won't be subtle. Their struggle, their fall, will be your proof. It will be the universe's confirmation that your faith was never misplaced. You didn't need to seek vengeance because their own actions have already set the stage for their collapse. As they scramble, as they try to fix what's beyond repair, you'll stand firm. What was once dismissed as weakness, your humility, your patience, your quiet faith, is now being validated. And while they crash and burn in the chaos they created, you'll rise, not because you fought back, but because you simply stayed grounded. Their downfall isn't just their punishment. It's your vindication. It's the world recognizing that you were right all along, that your faith wasn't naive, and that your silence wasn't weakness, it was strength. Number 13. The message wasn't for them, but for you. They were never the focus of the message. God didn't need them to understand, to change, or to repent. This was always about you, about your faith, your growth, your resilience. Their arrogance, their disregard for warnings, their mocking of your faith wasn't a lesson meant for them. It was a lesson meant for you. God allowed you to witness their downfall, not because He needed them to suffer, but because He needed you to see what happens when pride faces divine justice. This isn't a test for them. It's a confirmation for you. You've been walking in faith, staying humble and trusting in a plan you couldn't always see. Their rise, their arrogance, their mocking of your quiet strength was the backdrop God used to show you what happens when patience runs out and justice has its way. It wasn't about them winning. It was about you understanding deep down that nothing can stand against divine timing. You needed to witness the consequences of arrogance because, in doing so, your trust in God's plan grows. It strengthens your belief that no matter how loud the world gets or how powerful the arrogant seem, God is always watching, always waiting for the perfect moment to reveal His justice. This is not about gloating over their failure. It's about understanding that every step you've taken in faith, every moment you've trusted in God's timing, was never in vain. Your faith is stronger now because you've seen with your own eyes the power of divine justice at work. In the end, their arrogance becomes their undoing. They laughed too soon, mistook their borrowed power for permanence, and dismissed the warnings until it was too late. Their downfall wasn't a stroke of bad luck. It was a divine reckoning, a justice they never anticipated, but that was always certain. Every lie they told, every manipulation they executed, every time they mocked your faith, it was all a seed they planted, and now those seeds have borne their bitter fruit. But this story is not about their destruction. It's about your rise. The lessons they failed to learn were meant for you, to fortify your spirit, to show you the strength in humility, and to remind you that divine justice always prevails, even when it's quiet, even when it seems delayed. Your patience, your faith, your quiet resilience were never in vain. What they failed to realize is that they were never as untouchable as they thought. Their downfall is your confirmation. Your faith was never misplaced. You have witnessed what happens when pride meets the divine, and now you know that God's justice, though often subtle, is always powerful. So, when you stand tall amidst the wreckage they created, know this: your victory isn't in their defeat, but in the strength you've gained, the wisdom you've earned, and the faith that has only deepened. The world may have watched them fall, but it's you who will rise, unshaken, because your trust was always in something much greater than the fleeting power they once held. If this message resonates with you, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video to show you stand for truth. Comment your thoughts. I want to hear from you. Share this with someone who needs this message. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your faith is powerful, your patience is never wasted, and divine justice is always right on time. Stay connected, stay strong, and let's grow together.